I played 127 games under Craig Bellamy, and 127 times he made the hair on the back of my neck stand up.
Wow.
So 100%, but it always sort of drew back to, our identity and who we wanted to be. And like I said, the vision of where we're going and who we are.
Brett White has been involved at the top level across the NRL as a player in those great years at the Melbourne Storm, although somewhat tinged with controversy. With the Raiders, played for New South Wales, played for Australia, and now coaching at NRL level and also at those same two representative levels as well. You're going to learn a heap around the importance of vision. He talks a lot about how essential it is for success in all areas of your life to have your values set, know what they are and live them. And I especially enjoyed, and I think you're going to love, the little bit longer bit that we talked about the last year's State of Origin, and a call from this year's coach, Wally, was on the pod, and how they're going to do it again this year. Enjoy. I'm Ian Hawkins, and this is Sport is Life. The purpose of sport, as I see it, is to see your vision become a reality. Find your voice, create strong connections, and learn to trust your body. Cool. Brett, how you going?
Good. Thanks for having me on.
Well, mate, thank you. It's always good to work with people who've worked at the highest level, so I appreciate you coming on and investing this time. You're one of the players that's gone from playing to coaching successfully. Is coaching something that's always been in your blood, you reckon? Is it always something that's come naturally?
No, it's certainly not something I thought about doing as a player. I think, working down under, seeing how hard Craig Bellamy works at Melbourne, especially in the early days, when I was down there, and thinking that's madness. Who'd ever want to be that crazy? But I think it was maybe a natural progression for me. I actually grew up. My family had a horse riding business, so I grew up actually teaching people how to ride from a young age. Spent a lot of time out on trail rides and naturally coaching. So I think it was a natural thing I'd learned early on, and sort of progressed through my football career, and didn't really think about it until the end of my career when Ricky Stewart sat down and said, "Look, I'm not going to re-sign you as a player anymore. I'm going to offer you a full-time coaching role." That was when he first arrived at Canberra Raiders, and I was lucky enough and went, "Well, I've got this opportunity going to full-time coaching. Why not have a go at it, see what comes of it?" And I haven't looked back since. That was 2015, I think, when I first went into that.
How good.
Going.
Was that a bit of were you expecting that? Was it even though you were it's good that they had a progression for you, was it a bit of a shock to the system that he was basically called on time on your career?
It's funny. At the time, I wanted to play on, and I thought I could. Now if I look back at old football games come up and those last year or two, and I watch myself go around, I go, I'm glad he made the call, and I wasn't getting any quicker, slowing right down. And of course, as a player, you think you can still do it. But it was certainly the right time for me to, and he done it a really good way. Sat me down with all respect, and said how things were. He wanted to change the roster over, and thought it was a really good opportunity to bring me in and keep me on board. And I'm so grateful for Don Ferner, who was in the room at the time, CEO, and Rick, and the respect. That they've really, that's where my coaching career started, and I've got those two guys to thank.
Yeah, that's really cool. And I reckon they've spotted something in you that maybe you hadn't realised at the time. But I like what you said there about learning to teach riding. I think those skills get put in place from a young age, and it comes naturally. And I imagine if your family's got that your parents, or at least one of your parents, were naturally teachers or guides of some sort as well.
Yeah, there's a lot that went. A lot I learned from a young age with that. Like obviously having a family business, that I spent every day of every school holidays working in it. And, we'd be taking rides. There was a 6 hours of riding every day. And then you've got the saddling horses, unsaddling. You have people walk through the gates and tell you they're a really good, experienced rider, and then not sure which foot to put up to step up into the stirrup. So I learned as a young age that, especially, I guess, analysing people and trying to work people out, like at young age, working out if that's really an experienced rider to go on that. You've got to match people up to how well they ride to what sort of horse. And trying to pick up those little cues on people and where they're situated with their experience. And there's things like that. Obviously, the coaching of how to ride a horse, going through safety instructions, things like that, presenting in front of the group before they go out for a ride. All these things I didn't realise at the time. I look back now and they've given me the tools I really needed to go into coaching.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know you did a lot of work in leadership. That's being able to do that as a teen, stand in front of a crowd. That's learning how to be a leader at a young age as well, right?
Yeah, that's it. And you can imagine. We used to take out probably maybe 15 people on horses at a time. You've got some safety aspects there. You've got sometimes you get some yahoos that want to come on and think that they're jockeys and race each other, and so you've got safety issues that at times you're going to have to pull people up and protect them from themselves, and really be quite stern with you're leading this group and keeping them safe as well. So there's a lot of that. There's the encouragement side of it. Obviously, there's a lot of nerves around horse riding. People get nervous. They're big animals being on a horse for the first time. So, again, it's analysing people and working out, does this person just need some confidence, to improve and feel comfortable and enjoy that experience? Or is it someone, like I said, that's a yahoo that thinks they're better than they are and can get themselves into a dangerous situation really quick where you need to pull them up and pull them into line. And, so it's that whole thing you've got going the whole time, which is no different to, the best leaders. It's about the people, about when you need to encourage someone, when you need to pull someone up, making the boundaries really clear, and trying to help them get better. And really it's enjoy the experience. And that's ultimately what coaching is get the players to really enjoy what they do, because if they enjoy what they do and it's a great environment, you get the best out. That's how you get the best out of people. No different to a workplace or a football team or a horse riding group. People want to be involved in and have these good experiences, and that's what they'll always remember, and ultimately that's what will drive their energy while they're there doing it.
Love that. Love it. If you look back over your career when you were playing, were you kind of playing that sort of coaching role? Maybe not outwardly tactically, or maybe you did, but more around that analysing your teammates and working out what motivated them and what they needed to hear from you or what action they needed.
Yeah, probably, maybe just naturally, without knowingly. I never thought of it as a player. I was lucky enough to be involved in multiple leadership groups while I was a player, and involved in that. So I guess somewhere along those lines, I would have been doing that without realising it. Like I said, it's probably for doing it for so many years growing up, that it was probably a natural thing that I was used to doing.
Just comes second nature. I imagine, though, that if Ricky and Don Ferner have recognised it, then it must have been something that was just flooding out of you just without you realising.
Yeah, without doubt. It's like I said, it probably goes back to spending years in leadership groups. I think I was 4 years in the Melbourne Storm leadership group, and through one of the toughest periods of the club's career. Being through that and having those experiences and learning those things you learn along the way, it certainly it snowballs into more leadership, better, the way you conduct yourself and the way you go about your business. So I think that grows.
Yeah, absolutely. So you're working every weekend. Does that mean your junior footy career didn't start until later in life?
No, it was mainly school holidays that, I worked in the family business during
Right.
school holidays. Weekends were still, football. So it was from a young age footy, and footy was a great part of my life growing up. It was certainly something I never ever looked at as a career opportunity. It was just, for all the fun, all the good reasons to play sport. It was all about that. It was, we had our coach owned a big property, and we used to go out there camping and all sorts of things. So it was more about a group of friends we had, and hanging together, and again, it was that environment and all those great experiences we had along the way that really, I think got the best out of me, certainly as a young player playing, but really didn't have that end goal of making a career out of it. That's something, again, that just sort of popped up, and I guess it just happened.
Yeah, wow. What I love is I'm looking at your bio, and what I'm seeing are words like culture, leadership, resilience. These are all these things that you just learn as a kid. Like, how blessed to have that sort of upbringing that a lot of people don't, right? Like you learned it because it was just part of everyday life. Like, you think about that camp, that must have been great for the team, bringing a better bond and connection.
Yeah, there's sort of certainly a lot of I look at my childhood there's a lot of those things that I learned. A lot of country kids grow up on the farm and their properties and working, and that's all they know. They develop these great work ethics, and it's just something you don't really think about. It's just something you've grown up doing. But there's also a lot of sacrifice. Working in the family business, every school holidays. Also, those sacrifices of, we never went away on holidays as a kid. Like I look at caravan parks now and think they're the greatest thing ever, because it's something I missed out on doing as a kid growing up, as going on those camping trips away with the family. We were working in the business. So it's also that sacrifice of that. Certainly appreciate the small things.
Yeah, wow. I've got great memories of those caravan park holidays, but it's interesting that you've got that like same draw to them. Do you take your kids now on those sort of trips?
Yeah, I do. It was sort of something, as my kids got to that age, that sort of they've got a bit older now, but certainly when they're sort of that 6 years to 15-year age, that used to love taking them camping. Camping, roughing it, and camping into caravan parks. I certainly make sure my kids have had those experiences.
Yeah, and I reckon that's one of the best things about being a parent, is that we might have missed out on certain things, and we can sometimes have hang-ups about that, but being able to then pass that forward to the next generation is one of the great gifts, I reckon.
Certainly is.
It's really cool. I'm curious, you would have been either still playing or just out of your playing career. Do you get people in those sort of setups wanting to chew your ear off, or people really pretty respectful?
I guess it's I don't think I've found too many people ever disrespectful. There certainly a lot of questions get asked, and that's a great thing about our game, is there's always a lot of interest in it, and people wanting to know whether it's what a club was like, or a certain player was like, or an experience that I've been through was like. I find people in person are certainly a lot kinder and a lot nicer and easier to talk to than certainly some of the things you see online people put up. But it's certainly
Correct.
Two different types of you get that online, and then you get the real people. Certainly much rather talk to the real people when you get those opportunities to.
Yeah, absolutely. You mentioned that country upbringing and the hard work. I had Ben Cross on recently. He was actually the good man who got me in contact with you, and he talked about the same sort of thing, growing up in that more of that urban setting, and that was just part of the makeup. How well did that serve you then going forward into your career in football, being a coach, the leadership work you did, just that having that hard work ethic instilled in who you are?
Yeah, it's certainly the foundations of everything I've been able to do in my career was always based around the hard work. I was never going to get outworked by anyone. I guess that striving to be your best. One of the greatest tools, to do that is hard work. It's whether it was as a player, I was always the extras. Whether it was at training or away from training on my own, no different to my coaching career. There's always the extras. There's always most off seasons. I'm doing some personal development, some sort of course, some sort of trip somewhere. The last couple of years have been a bit hard with doing rep football and whatnot, but certainly previous to that, there's a lot of PD stuff that gets done. So it's no different. As a player, you're probably physically working. As a coach, you're mentally working on that. Whether it's bettering yourself or learning how to better other people.
Yeah, and it also transfers across to every other part of your life. And a lot of the listeners are not going to be familiar with that elite level, but they'll have elite work environments or other parts of their life. And what you said there is that continual personal development. You're always working on something. And I think that's really important for the people listening to really make sure they've got as part of their sort of daily game plan is to have that that commitment to be working on themselves as well. Yeah.
And I think it's something that it's an infinity learn. I guess life, you're continually learning. You're never going to get, you're never going to. It's, I guess, like football. Really, it's you're never going to get to the finished product. You continually work at it. There's a famous story about Cooper Cronk in an Origin series one time where on the day off he took a bag of footballs down. All the playing group was going out to the movies, and Cooper grabbed a bag of footballs and went down and practiced his field goals on the day off while all the other players are off enjoying their downtime. Guess how they won the game?
Field goal.
By a field goal. So it's one of those things you always think about. You always strive to be the best by those little extras and those little extra things you do. Not always going to get the rewards, not always going to be the finished product, but it's a continual growth of looking to be better and taking every opportunity to grow and be better.
Well said. Now, it's well known that Melbourne are looking for good people first and foremost. So how did you end up in Melbourne? Is that your first grade game was in Melbourne too?
Yeah. Yep. I moved from the country. I moved to Sydney to start an apprenticeship. Had nothing to do with football. I got up to Sydney, a country town, country boy didn't know anyone, just started playing football at Hurstville United in the middle of Sydney, just to get to know some people. Lucky enough, got picked up and asked to go for a trial at St. George. St. George juniors come through the ranks at St. George. Had a few, the last couple of years I was there. I was about 21, had a couple of injuries, missed a lot of football. Lucky enough to have a guy by the name of Peter O'Sullivan was a coach there at St. George when I was about 19. And he went down, he got a job as a recruitment officer down at Melbourne Storm. So a couple of years later, I was struggling with some injuries, couldn't get on the field, and I was thrown in a lifeline by Melbourne and by Peter O'Sullivan. And pretty much the way it happened was I had a phone call one day, and it was Craig Bellamy, and he pretty much said, there's an opportunity opportunity to play first grade down here for you if you want to come down here and work hard. I'll come back to my upbringing, and it was one thing I did know how to do. Certainly, probably wasn't the most talented footballer, but I knew I could work hard, and that was as basic or as simple as it was. If you come down here and work hard, I'll give you an opportunity. That's all I needed. All I needed here was like this magic words that I said, right, I'm packing my bags, and a couple of months later I was down in Melbourne, and one of the toughest pre-seasons ever I've ever experienced. Grew a lot, and round 1 2005 made my NRL debut.
Wow. And 5 good years there, really good years.
Would have 6.
6, yeah. Wow. And we don't need to go into details around that, what transpired, but it must have just been like you must have been pinching yourself with just the success and being able to play with some of the, or what we've seen now over the course of their career, some of the best players of all time. Yeah,
probably at the time you didn't realise how good they really were. That was all when they were all young.
Yeah.
First, the early years of and the development of the big three, and the likes of young Israel Folau in his first year or two in NRL. So they're good players, but you don't realise how big they are in our game. I always say I used to play the ball, and Cameron Smith would pick it up and pass it to Cooper Cronk, and Cooper Cronk would go to Billy Slater and off to Greg Inglis and Israel Folau on the end of the line. Like they're superstars. You look back and they're some of the greatest players we've had in our game. And we're all down there. And like I said at the time, they're just teammates. We're really young in our careers. It was just probably before, just as the start of all this success, and certainly for those guys individually. We're all the same. We knew how to work hard. We all worked hard. They all got wonderful work ethics. Those guys were certainly a lot more naturally talented. But we all brought into a pretty simple way of training, a way of doing things, a way of life, a set of values, and the environment was fantastic. It's probably everything we spoke about so far was the key ingredients down there, and the success still runs through with the same recipe.
Yeah, exactly. Same recipe, just rinse and repeat. There must have been, has to have been an element of evolution of that as well, like making subtle changes along the way, but the essence of it's still the same as it was 20 years ago.
I presume. Look, it's been a long time. It's 14 years since I left Melbourne now. But I know that the basis of what they value down there as an organisation, and the people that are involved. The people, there's some people that have been there, for years, 20 odd years down there, and I don't think they change too much. They keep it simple, and like you said, it all starts with the people. You get the right people, you create that environment. Everyone's on the same page, and rinse and repeat.
Do you remember growing up, like you just said you'd never thought about a career, but did you watch the footy and think like do you have aspirations to sort of be playing at that high level, or you just played?
I thought the big lights of the NRL was a million miles away. I was like any other kid. Like I still remember I went to the SFS to watch an NRL game, the Bulldogs and the Broncos, when I was about 12 years old, and just the admiration and the admiring, the big stadium and the lights and these players that I'd seen on TV, and I still remember Fatty Vaughton walking across the oval and thinking he was the biggest star ever. All these things that I probably never believed that I could one day be playing on that field. There's certainly, I think within us all, there's that. There's always that self doubt that that I could ever, small town country boy, how am I ever going to get there? Imposter syndrome is always there, and I think within us all. So I certainly it probably wasn't really a goal. Like I said, it was something that come later to me, and once I locked onto it, I didn't let it go.
Yeah, I love it. That time at Melbourne where I saw well documented things all sort of falling apart, like for you personally, did you just get on with it, or did you find it like really difficult to deal with from a mental and emotional perspective, just the magnitude of what was happening?
To be honest, probably still do.
Yeah, right.
It's something that like without doubt, it's that day that all broke was definitely the hardest day I've ever come across. It was the 22nd of April 2010 when it all broke, and you can imagine at the peak of our careers, at the peak of our everything we've done. I just come off a kangaroo tour playing for Australia. I'd been playing Origin, played 4 grand finals, and to be told that everything's pretty much been taken away from you in one 10-minute team meeting was there wasn't even a, hey, this is what's happening, there's going to be an investigation. It was sort of upside down in terms of, here's a punishment for what's happened. We had no idea. So it's certainly, most of the time I'd try and make jokes and laugh about it to try and master the pain that's within inside. But, it certainly hasn't been an easy thing.
Yeah, and as not that I've played at that level, but as a footballer, I've always thought still 13 or 17 against 17, you still got to beat what's there. It's not the first team that's been stacked with stars, and it certainly won't be the last team. Like, you still have to go out there and do the work, right? There must be part of you just going, well, we know what we did. Like, we have to work our ass off for this.
Well, it wasn't a team stacked with stars because there was no one brought. I think Anthony Quinn, who was a winger, was the only player that was brought. There was a couple that come down there, like Mick Crocker as a lifeline, because no one else wanted him at the time. He was considered too hard work, but certainly wasn't stacked. It was all the players were developed and brought through. So it's there's a lot, and everyone's going to have their view and their own opinion, and that's all fine and well. But I'd imagine if you're a doctor and you've worked 6 years to become a doctor, and someone walks in and says you're no longer a doctor because organisation has done this, and that, and you have that all taken, everything you've worked for and achieved taken away from you within a 10-minute team meeting without a full investigation, I guess is it's not easy.
Yeah, heartbreaking, I imagine.
Certainly was. Certainly, it's like I said, it certainly changes. You learn a lot. You certainly learn. Some of my proudest things I've been proud of is how the club held together after it. That year, 2010, we weren't playing for any points, but we still won the same amount of games we did the year before. Like, how do you mentally, as a team, able to do that? Like, we were playing teams that were playing for final spots,
beating
and they had everything to play for. We had nothing, but we had our values that we believed in, and we had these values that were driven into us, and they were just habitual things that you turn up and get your job done.
I can still vividly remember listening to the footy on I think you might have been playing on a Sunday, the first game after it all come down, and the crowd, because it was a home game, I think, from memory.
It was a home game down at Docklands against the Warriors.
And the crowd was right behind you. And I just remember being like, I got goosebumps again when you were talking about it, and getting goosebumps and going, what unbelievable to get that sort of motivation to play and win when that's happening that week. And other people might have been reacting the other way, but that was just like, to me, like, I've always been someone observing people's behaviour and how they react, and I just thought that was so unbelievable. And as a Para fan who's never been a massive supporter of the Storm in any way, I was so blown away in a good way about just how impressive that game, and then how that just continued. Yeah,
to be honest, Ian, I think those sort of games are probably easy because it's an emotion.
Yeah.
I want to say around about round 6, where the first week or two is emotion.
Yeah.
But what about round 20 at the end of the year when that emotion's gone? It's a long year. You're starting. Players are starting to sign at other clubs, and you see it's all starting to break up. That's when the true colours show, and they're the games that I'm probably most proud of in terms of what that team, what that club was about. So they're the ones that, like I said, it's easy to do things on emotion. It's when it gets really hard later in the year that still being able to do it.
Yeah, hugely impressive. So if we move forward now to you, the coach, does that still drive you like now, like success because of that heartbreak? Is it make you even more driven to get success?
No, it's probably the other way.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, it's probably gone the other way. Like, you win a premiership and they say it can never be taken away from you. Well, guess what? I had it happen twice. So it's probably not. And don't get me wrong, I'd love nothing more. So not that it comes across the wrong way. It's probably that's not the number one. About building that culture and environment, and ingraining those values that it was based on. Yep. That's the important part, because it's a like I said to you, the success and of those really strong, good teams, or the good clubs, or the good environments, good cultures, what they're based on gives them the success. Those values of hard work, the selflessness of putting the team first. That was a massive part of it. Doing, everyone taking accountability and doing their part in what the team needs. Sometimes you didn't like doing what you're doing from a personal level, but if it brings the team success, it's worth it. So that's probably, and like I said, don't take it the wrong way. Yeah, I love winning, and I'm still competitive but I think the number one thing is that building those cultures, environments, that's ultimately will lead to the success, and not only having it once, but that staying at the top and ongoing.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's what you talked about at the start, is it's got to be fun, it's got to be a happy environment. Otherwise, what's the point? It's still life, right?
I guess it's around the sustained success.
Yeah.
Sorry, with the S's there, but that's ultimately, the longevity of it. Long term, that long term vision. I think that's one of the big things about leadership, and certainly the great leaders that I've worked alongside or worked under, especially when I've got into coaching. Some of what makes them so great is being able to set a vision, a clear vision of where we're going as a group, and everyone on board to that vision, and then ultimately, like I said, the people, the environment in behind that, and then the work, the detail in the work, the habits, and then you get into your flow of it.
Yeah. I remember when I did some work with the dogs a few years back, I was talking to I might have been Het, who you'd be familiar with, at Wellbeing, head of Wellbeing for the NRL, and him talking about how there's a correlation between good quality well-being and careers and people work and results. And interestingly, you're at the Titans now. You said Titans were a bit of an outlier because they had the best metrics, or one of the best metrics, but the results weren't necessarily flowing through there. How much part do you play in that as an assistant coach to making sure those young men that are under your tutelage are getting good advice around who they are as people?
Yeah, obviously it's a massive part of our game now. That I think every team, we all have similar gym programs. We all have similar fitness programs. With as a coaching part, strategically, we're all doing this similar X's and O's. But like you said, ultimately, what are the top teams doing? What's the difference? And a lot of that is between the ears and the well-being of players and how much they buy into that vision, that organisation. And it is, like you said, it is driven a lot of the time by the welfare departments. That's one aspect of it. And I think footy clubs are like any business where you got multiple cogs going, and they've all got to be humming and working in sync to get the results. And some can, and the results are the results.
Yeah, so if you look at your own personal journey and some of those setbacks that you already talked about and other moments, like, can you remember moments of helping a young footballer where they needed a bit of a lift, and just how, because I know what it's like as a coach when you see the impact of your work, yes, from a football perspective, but also from that just general well-being perspective. It just gives you such a buzz when you help someone that's over something that they might have been blocked on.
You see it all the time. I saw it probably the most as when I had the NYC, the National Youth Comp, under 20s, old under 20s. At Canberra, I had the NYC team for 2 years, 2016, 17. And I probably saw the most then, with especially young kids that they come from all sorts of different backgrounds and environments, and you got to try and get these kids. They come from a lot of the time from afar and move to a foreign place, and you got to get them comfortable. You got to get them deal with the homesicknesses, a different way of life sometimes. And I think that was probably the most I've seen where, and everyone has their own issues going on in the background. Some are able to handle it, and some need some help. And there's many times where, my phone was always on. I told the players all the time that they can call me at any time. And multiple times I had late night phone calls about something that's happened out on the town, or something that's happened at home. I think that's all part of the coaching is looking after the people first. And certainly seen there's a few where definitely need to then call on assistance of some experts. I'm by no means an expert in any of those deeper areas, but it's just knowing when you need to call on someone that is in those right areas. But certainly, especially at the young age of 19-year-olds, that they're still trying to work out life in itself, let alone environment of a high performance team. in a big football club. But there were some interesting times. Certainly got from a personal point of view, a lot of growth from that. It was a wonderful experience.
Awesome. I hear a lot of the best coaches talk about the stories that they tell and inspiring. And I'm sure there's only so many times you can use the same trick to try and get teams up. But can you remember something from a coach that like just had you 10 foot tall and like just played unbelievably as a result of what you heard before you went out
there? Look, I don't think so much the one-off speeches as much. Certainly, then again, I'm probably wrong because I said that I once played, I played 127 games under Craig Bellamy, and 127 times he made the hair on the back of my neck stand up.
Wow.
So 100%, but it always sort of drew back to, our identity and who we wanted to be. And like I said, the vision of where we're going and who we are. And ultimately the feeling of belonging. I think that's a massive thing in team environments. We all have a natural instinct, and I think it goes back to prehistoric days of being of cavemen and being in tribes where we to survive back then you needed to be in a tribe, you needed to be belonging in a group, because if you got isolated out of that group, it was a matter of survival. You didn't survive, and I think that's an inbuilt mechanism in us all where we don't want to be outcast from any group. We want to feel like we belong to it. I think when we feel like we belong to it, and our role's clear, whether I'm my job's lighting the fire every night for our caveman family. Well, that's my job, and I've got to get that done. And other people rely on me. Well, it's very similar to a football sense. For me to belong to my team, I needed to run hard and get quick play the balls. I didn't need to get offloads. I didn't need to put kicks in. I didn't need to do anything else. I just needed to run hard and get quick play the balls. Because then your Cam Smiths jump out and Cooper Cronk gives it to Billy Slater, and everything else is we win the game. So that was my small part, all I had to do, and that's how I felt that I belonged. And I think when it all comes back to those things, that for me, that's where I drew my inspiration from, is being able to do that small part.
Well, everyone who's a league fan knows how important that role is. So are you saying small part from a place of humility, or because that's how it was coached to you that everyone just plays a small part?
No, probably from the way it was coached, definitely. It was just, ultimately just know your role and get that done. And, if everyone does their part, it's rugby league's an easy game. I think that's what, like I said, drew my energy and got the best out of me as a footballer.
Yeah, it's good. I'm curious, as a New South Welshman, about last year, because what was clear from the outside is that there was a connection in that group that hadn't seen for many years, and it got collective buy-in from the masses as well. Like, you never go to Queensland game 3 confident, but I just was. And that was just the effect of all of it. And I think there's a general feel as well, is that people like actually believed. And it's not like the team was, suddenly we had all these different players in there. We had a few new players, obviously, but there's obviously something magic about that camp. And you being a part of that must be a really proud moment.
100% right. It's funny. I actually said throughout the series that last year was the most connected I felt to the New South Wales jumper.
Yeah.
And I think however many games, half a dozen games, and over 3 years or 3 series or whatever it was, that playing in that jumper, and yet I felt most connected to it last year as an assistant coach. And that come from the group buy-in, but ultimately what we've been talking about is the vision that was set. Madge done a wonderful job of setting this, where we're going and who we want to be. And the players saw that clearly, jumped on board. Wonderful group. Again, you talk about people, not only the playing group, but it was right through all the staff. It's probably definitely one of the best groups I've worked with in terms of, everyone just done their role. They helped out where they could. But again, we talk about that recipe of, good people, the vision set, everyone goes about, works hard and gets their job done. Ultimately that's what, and we did talk about, that if we're all connected to the jumper and do what's best for the jumper, it will be seen by, the people in New South Wales, and they will ultimately connect to the jumper even further and be proud of it. And that's certainly the vision we wanted and chased. And it certainly pleases me, hearing you talk about that you feel that you could see that from the outside. That was the feeling. And that was a real big goal of ours last year.
Yeah, awesome. The only letdown for me is I took my young fella to his first Origin game, and we knew after 8 minutes that the game was done. Right, I was again really super impressive how the team hung in there, and they were still in the game with 20 minutes, 15 to go. Like that again, super impressive. But then in the end, it's just in the modern day, particularly Origin, playing with a man less is nearly impossible. But I'm a bit of a footy nuffy, so I just absorb myself in all this sort of stuff. And I listened to Madge talk on multiple podcasts, on TV shows, and he talked about the length he went to. I heard ex-players talk about how Madge organised a coffee with me and he bought the jersey out. It was literally a physical connection as well as the emotional connection, bringing back that moment with Turvey, which Blues fans all remember. And it felt like we did a Queensland on Queensland. Like that's what it felt like, even to the extent of, I remember the press conference in Melbourne where like, you can say he wasn't rattled, but I reckon for the first time in his career, Billy looked rattled, and I was blown away. And it was super impressive what Madge did. And like you said, that requires collective buy-in. So yeah, well done.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
No, it was like I said, it was just all the sacrifice and hard work that goes into for all the players, all the staff, to have that pay off and be a part of that, and something that's so big that to make New South Wales, the people in New South Wales, proud and connected to that jumper again. I think it was great for our won our game for Origin. But more importantly, the sky blue jumper.
Yeah, and I think about, teams talk about next up mentality, and the best teams have that, and it doesn't matter, they come in and they fall into the system. Like, I know they were out without some big names, but we're without some huge names, and yet those guys just stepped in and did the job. Again, super impressive. Interesting that you said the vision so important. And if I bring it back to a lot of what I talk about in this podcast is what you can apply to your life. That all of these things that we're talking about here today are so important. Like you talked about having that vision and having that buy-in. You've got to have a vision for your life, right? Like you've got to have those things in place. And if you put your leadership hat on, because you do work with businesses in your own leadership business, it's the same language, right? It's the same things need to be in place.
100%. It's a why. Why? The vision is a why. Why are we here? Why do we get out of bed and go to work every day? Why? As a business, as a footy team, it crosses over so similar. If people can see that vision, they feel like they belong, they're connected to it. They're certainly going to work a lot harder than if there isn't a vision. And Sorry, Loz is calling. Sorry, mate.
You can take that if you need to. Get him on. No, I'm joking. Well, it's a good timing. He must have heard me thinking because I was going to ask. So you've got Loz now in place. You're still involved. How do you then bring that same energy and connection across? I imagine that's already well and truly underway. And give me hope, mate. Give me hope for this year. Like, what? How are you going to replicate that?
It's a phone call. I could tell you after I make this phone call look, we've like I said, we've got a camp coming up. I think it is holding on to that definitely that culture we had and that the connection to that jumper. Loz got some I guess some things where it's not changing it. It's how do we do it even better? Which is a key thing. It's how do we take that and how do we improve it? Because we certainly don't want to just rely on that. That was last year. That's done and dusted. It's not gonna help this year on the field. We've got to keep driving that. What was important. So he's got some ways. It's not changing everything, but how can we even be better? So really looking forward to that, but I probably won't know too much more about than that until I give him a call back.
Yeah. And you're going to have that same core group of players. And I imagine a lot of those guys who are injured, who have been an integral part of the squad for the last few years, would have been involved even if they weren't playing, yeah?
Oh, no doubt. Yeah. No doubt. It's, even all the staff have been kept the same. There's a couple new ones that have come in to replace outgoing that for whatever reason. But majority, I think it's like 95% of the staff are all the same. The playing group will be very similar, depending on obviously on fitness and availability, and that's really important. That carrying through and holding together and staying on that same track.
I'm going to get more of some of the life stuff in a minute, but I want to ask about your current role with the Titans. And were you there before Des got there as well?
The year before, yeah.
Yeah, so you had another changeover of coaches. You must be getting good at being able to adapt to that, or is that just the way of the modern coach? You've just got to be able to be adaptable because people come and go quite often.
They're all they're certainly all different. I've worked for I think it's 6 head coaches now, and they're certainly all very different. Des took a little bit of adjusting to. He's the way he views the game, and especially he's massive on analysing and the numbers out of the game and whatnot. So certainly took a lot of adjusting, probably to the Des change, but the learning's been phenomenal. Like I said, they're all genuine in the way they do things is a reflection of them, who they are as people. They're genuine to that, which I think is really important. Not trying to copy anyone or they're just what they believe. It's probably been one of my biggest learnings. But all subtly different. How they're probably really good in different areas individually. Certainly the way Des analyses it and breaks the game down, and that's been super impressive to watch.
Yeah, wow. And I think that's a common theme when people talk about that, about his work. Are you I know this time of year everyone's excited and everyone thinks they're a chance, and to me it's never been closer that you probably got a few standouts, but then try guessing 5th to 17th, right? Like it'll come down to injuries and a whole lot of things, but you must be confident because you've built quite a good squad there.
Yeah, we're unbeaten for this year, so it's all good. We're fit, we're firing, it's the same for every club. Every club you talk to now, they're all fit and feeling good. we certainly, like any team, we need some luck. We need to keep our best players on the field. We need to keep them playing together and cohesion. There's been a little bit of adjusting in our spine. We've added to our forward pack, so we've got a bit more grunt through the middle. So as long as we can get that luck, I certainly think we can. Definitely an improvement on last year.
Yeah, and I remember something obviously clicked for the team, because you said it was quite a change with Desi, but something clicked because there was a period in the middle of the year where you guys were going like real good, like upset wins and in games that perhaps had no right to be based on previous form.
Yeah, so I think early on it took a little bit of an adjustment, like we said, and then sort of hit your groove. Then maybe the back end probably run out of a bit of juice, which is something we identified, a bit of energy. We had a few injuries and needed to rely on some of our young players, especially through the middle. After Lee, we lost Tino in round 2, so some of those younger players had to come up and certainly played more footy than we'd expected, and it probably wore us out at the back end. But they'll certainly be better for that. We add Tino back in. We get Regan Campbell-Gillard in there, and hopefully that'll we don't have that early period through the start of the year, through that readjustment period. We know our footy now, so hit the ground running early in the season, get that form throughout it, and the longevity through the back end of the season, I think we'll be in a better place to handle.
Yeah, and again, like you said, providing people stay fit. No one's bashing the Titans this year. It's an impressive, large lineup.
Yeah, it is. It's like I said, if we can keep everyone on the field, there's certainly some experience in there. You get even with the back rowers, Dave Fafita and Bo Fermor, who's been on the cusp of Origin. Tino, Mo Fodawaker, and Regan Campbell-Gillard are all Origin players. So there's five players there that within our middle that are experienced in that Origin ability. We've certainly got the speed in Keanu Kinney and Jaden Campbell, AJ Brimson in the halves. So if the forwards can get us rolling and those guys can play off the back of that, you got guys like Lafayette and Capera that'll finish it off. And we need that luck. Keep them all out there. Keep them all on the field.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, what inspired you to start your own gig? Because on top of your coaching, you've got your leadership business. How did that come about?
I don't know if it was so much inspiration. I think it was a mentor of mine that we're talking about one day having coffees and talking about obviously the stress of coaching. It's probably the most unsecure industry in the world. Is coaching. Certainly knows job security, and talking about how that can be a stressful thing. And he sort of spoke about maybe taking some of the stress off by having a plan B, and utilising the experience I've had in the game and the things I've learned, all the things we talked about earlier, and crossing that over in a business sense and working in business. So off a few more coffees and sort of started to put it together and come up with some workshops that had businesses pick up really quick to the point where now it's all been on word of mouth. At the moment I've had to almost put everything on hold. I've been pretty busy the last couple of years and with Origin and also the Kangaroos at the back end of the year. So obviously off seasons, still doing footy stuff. So then come back around into the preseason. So it's pretty much all year round is coaching and footy for me at the moment. But have ticked away in the background with some of the business consultancy, leadership and workshop. Use a model, whole brain thinking, which is a company called Herman, where a few years ago I went away and become a certified practitioner, and it's essentially understanding what part of the brain we use when we think.
Yep.
The brain's like a muscle. We use certain parts in certain ways. We all think differently, which it's pretty common to understand that. But working on thinking agility and being able to use different parts of our brain and understanding how the makeup of the different parts we use when we do think and how that's viewed and how we look into that. So that's certainly a big part of my coaching is the whole brain thinking and then tying that into the leadership and then running workshops in or around that with businesses.
Yeah, love it. And some of the things, I'm going down that avenue as well as using those sport analogies. You've got raise your game there is the business, leadership, resilience, peak performance. All of those skills so important, whether it's business, whether it's football, but also like family life, right? Like it's often the place that we don't necessarily apply it the most, but bringing those skills across to those areas. Like one thing I talk a lot with clients is you don't want to bring work home, but you want to bring the best parts of what actually is successful at work. And football, right? Process, values, which take the emotion out of the conversation. So what could you share around those sort of ideas and how you would recommend to someone when you're doing that sort of leadership coaching, how they would apply that to their everyday life?
Yeah, I think a lot for me, a lot of it's probably the other way where what you do in life is what will go into your career.
Yeah, love it.
In terms of the way you are with people, your time management. Do you turn up on time, or are you good with your time in life? Because that's a really important part, especially in high performance. Being on time. If your word is your word. If you say you're going to be there at a 5 o'clock meeting, are you there at 5 o'clock? Can you be relied on? And how that's really important to a lot of people. Those small things. So the discipline, hard work, the resilience. I guess my advice to anyone is to develop that within their own lives, away from their career, and that will filter through into your career.
Yeah, spot on. You mentioned, again, I want to dig a bit more into this personal stuff because the majority of the people listening are going to be not necessarily have been exposed to that level of elite training. You mentioned even those guys at the top level have an element of self-doubt. So what's one or two tips you can give them that despite a lot of evidence to say you're going to be successful, and even if you've got things in place, how you are able to continue to show up the best you can despite the self-doubt, to find more of that self-belief?
I think it comes back to, I probably overuse the word hard work, but ultimately what is hard work? It's preparation. It's preparing. How well do you prepare? Will give you the confidence. That's where confidence comes from. Whether it's preparing for a presentation in front of your boss or to your boss, is that how well do you prepare? How much time is put into that? That becomes then the confidence piece that you've done it that many times, and we all get nervous about things. Like I present nearly every day to a group of footballers, and day in day out, and you still have that little bit of beforehand. So it's natural. That's the energy part, and that's what drives us. So understanding that when it does happen, that those nerves are energy, and it's okay. But the preparation that you've done leading into that meeting is where you'll be able to beat the little person that we all have on our shoulder telling us that the players are going to laugh at you today. They're not going to believe you today. We certainly all have that. That'll probably never go away, and that's okay. But it's also being aware, our awareness around that stuff. First thing I know around any addictions, first part of it is an awareness. That's the first way of changing anything, is being aware of it.
Love it.
That is okay. We all have that little person. We all have that thing in the back of our heads going, it's not going to, you're going to be laughed at today. But then you have the other side of it, saying the preparation part, that I've prepared as well as I can. I've prepared, and how well I've prepared is how well it will shine through.
So good, and that especially applies for whatever sport you're playing as well. I love what you touched on there around nerves. I did this piece on that just this week on the podcast, is around how often people think they're going into anxiety and it's nervous excitement. Now, not to discount people with anxiety, but how often is it that you're going into a spiral that's not there? Because anything that has been important to me, I've got some nerves. Like if you want to do a really good job today, like it's not every day I get to interview people at your level. And so, yeah, there's an element of nerves. But again, you do the preparation, like you said. It's a good one for the listeners to remember, is that not everything goes clockwork. Even those at the top level still get nerves. I remember actually, because I did a lot of years at Fox Sports as well, sometimes when the players came in to get interviewed and so on, they looked really uncomfortable in that setting because it was not normal for them, almost painfully so, some of them. So, yeah, everyone gets nerves and everyone's got to build up that resilience to those situations, but preparation being key. Love it.
Yeah, and certainly that awareness around it and identifying that when we are feeling like that, I'm feeling nervous about that. Okay, that's okay. That's good. I'm alive. Yeah. I've got energy for it. It's, but again, it comes back to the preparation. That won't get rid of the nerves completely.
No,
but it will help with the confidence piece. I think when we've prepared and we are feeling confident and good about ourselves, it will balance out. The nerves won't take over.
Yeah, spot on. You smiled when I was talking about maybe a bit uncomfortable in those sort of settings. Is that from your own experience or from watching maybe some of the younger players now?
Both, yeah.
Yeah, right.
100%. I just had that clear picture of it, seeing those players or myself, especially the younger years, you get the lights and the camera and oh, wow. And I can just picture a lot of the young players that, I think there was a famous one. I know. Well, I don't know how famous. I know when we were at Melbourne, it was a big thing that when Israel Folau, in one of his young interviews, one of his first interviews, that a reporter asked him a question and he didn't know what to say. And he just said, "Thank you for the question."
It's a good way of dealing with it. That's good. Oh, mate. At least he had something. At least he had something. What struck me was, and not surprising, right? Like I imagine there's an element of being in a bubble. I guess less so in Melbourne because you're probably more anonymity there. You can go out, but particularly in Sydney and some of the bigger clubs, it's almost like going in and amongst the public, and less certain there than they would be on the field in front of 20,000 people.
Yeah, it's. I think nowadays there's a lot more spotlight on players. I think, especially through social media, that everyone's aware and sees their face pop up on players' faces and names pop up. There seems to be a lot more spotlight or awareness. Exposure. Yeah, definitely exposure. Not just as the footballer, but the footballer as a person, and so they're exposed to a lot more of that, as people out in public, and that awareness around who they are and what they do. There's certainly a lot more awareness for the players of how they conduct themselves. I know, even as things like getting photos with people and making sure they're not in compromising positions in the way that they're in the photo. I know there's a lot of players that have some real awareness around that.
Some
the photo gets taken.
Yeah, some have less awareness, as we've seen. I always come back to defending the player, because, mate, if I had people following me around with a camera when I was that age, like, I'd have been embarrassed, no doubt, many times. And I remember Johnny Raper talking about kangaroo tours. Like, this guy's celebrated legend of our game, but he goes, "Hey, like, we got up to all sorts of mischief."
Yeah, certainly. Certainly a different world. I'm glad I played when I did.
It says every footballer from your generation and before. Okay, so I'm big on the positive impact that sport can have on people's lives. For you, what is the legacy that you see sport can leave from your experience?
On
just like the positive impact that it can have. Like, you think of, I imagine that the Titans do a heap of work trying to engage the community. I'm sure you see stories come in from different fans, and sometimes, people give sport a bad rap, but for me, it's like the good that doesn't get reported anywhere near enough, and the positive impact that teams can have. There's so much upside.
I think one of the great things about rugby league is we're a working class game. We're a blue collar game, and a lot of our fans, a lot of our players, myself included, sometimes come from all sorts of different backgrounds. Some of those backgrounds aren't always the pleasant ones, and I think our game can inspire and certainly does. For those lucky few that get to go through and make careers of it, can certainly change not only players but their whole families. Certainly, I'm not sure if I'd be living in as nice a place and as nice a house as I've got, for my kids, if I didn't make it as a player. But also, you really notice when you do those things like hospital visits. And you see the players walk in, especially well-known players walk into a certain room where there's kids doing it tough, or sick kids on a bed, and their favourite player walks in. You see that it's worth everything. Those sort of experiences. As well as, like I said, the legacy it leaves in terms of, for communities. A lot of communities are based around their football teams, and it's probably one of the hardest things as seen in the last few years. As our country rugby league probably, has struggled at times in certain areas, and I think the effects that can have on communities is massive. I don't know what the answer is, and I don't know how to fix that. But I think as a game, we've got to be aware of that. Our basis, especially country rugby league, is so important to these communities. Not only for rugby league and our players into the future, but also for the impact that it has on communities and getting players, getting young kids, whether it's off screens or out of trouble, and getting them playing sport and learning those disciplines and those work ethics and values that team sport can provide. That's probably the biggest area where we see the biggest impact, but it's also an area I think we've need to put a bit more energy into as a game, and I think that's I'd love to see the government politicians see the importance of that, how important it is, sport is in a whole to our communities.
Yeah, spot on. What about from a different perspective? You, the fan or like a moment in a sport you weren't involved in, or even just a game you weren't involved in? Like, can you remember a really uplifting moment, or just a moment where as a fan you were just like, having the time of your life because you were enjoying a particular moment in sport? Like, for example, 2005, the Socceroos World Cup qualifier. Like, that's just, I get goosebumps even thinking about it, because I was there at that game, and all the years where we turned up and been disappointed. Like, it was a real really cathartic and healing I think for many people. But you have anything like that you can recall?
Probably the greatest thing that comes to mind is Kathy Freeman in 2000 Olympics. Her run was the 200 meter.
400.
Talk about 400 uplifting moments. Like, it's the whole nation. The pride of the nation in front of the world, on the world stage. So, that certainly comes to mind. Different sports. I come from a family that was certainly boxing fans as a young kid. So watching, multiple fights, Costa Zoo, what he done, some of his fights when I was younger, watching those, and they were pretty inspiring and impressive.
Yeah, great examples. What about you as the dad? Like, have you had some proud moments? Not necessarily just all about winning, watching youngsters grow up and get involved as well.
Yeah, I'm just happy my kids are sporty kids. I'm certainly not one to, if they make it or don't make it, it doesn't worry me at all. As long as they're, I just want to see those values come through in them, and it's something we talk about regularly as a family. I've got 4 kids, 3 are boys, and just those values of hard work and resilience is pretty much it. Being able to overcome when things happen, that resilience piece, and work hard. If I've got one of my boys, my middle boy doesn't even play footy. He's into jiu-jitsu. So it's what do you want to do, and how hard do you want to work? If you want to go in a competition, let's work hard at it. And when I see him working hard at something, and when I see him resilient of overcoming the challenges, for me, that's the greatest thing. It's not what they achieve, it's what they do along the way, and comes right back to where we started as what I believe is the recipe for success, and it's those values that stand tall, and I've seen any time there's been success, I've seen those parts in it.
Love it. So good. And having done a bit of work around the community sport environment, it's so important that parents know that. And so it's great to hear you really, emphasize that that's the most important thing. The achievements will come if you provide the space for them, and they understand values, and they understand resilience and hard work and all those things. So, yeah, well said. I was going to let you go, but I've got one more question I just thought of. You worked with the Australian setup as well?
Yep.
What was that like, working with Mal Meninga? He's got a bit of an aura around him, and people talk about it like there's just something that, So what was that experience like for you?
Oh, mate, Mal's phenomenal. Mal's he's an icon of our game. So, you probably sometimes you forget how big he is in our game until you walk through an airport with him, and it's like a rock star. He does have that real aura. But one of the greatest things, and I've never seen anyone like it, is that being able to set that vision and create the right environment for that. So it's been a massive learning from Mal in how he views success. It has been awesome. I've thoroughly enjoyed that, and lucky we had some success this year with the Pacific Championships. So hopefully we continue that. We've got Ashes at the end of this series, end of the season, NRL season. It looks like a trip to England, so 3 games over there. I'm not sure if that's been confirmed yet, but looks like it's on track to be. So yeah, it's been wonderful to work alongside one of our icons of our game.
Awesome. Well, you must be doing something right in that coaching space, because you're now assisting at all of those levels. Do you have aspirations to be a head coach?
Yeah, without doubt. It's certainly something that I'd love to be able to create my own environment. I think I can add a lot of value there in that space. Certainly something I do have aspirations. One of the big things I think with any of it is around the timing. Making sure the timing's right. When and if that opportunity comes, I'd grab it with 2 hands. But at the moment, it's I'm pretty busy. The 3 roles in place and flat out, and trying to be a father to 4 kids. So it's hands are full at the moment, but we'll keep improving and the growth, week in, week out.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, I wish you all the best for this year, particularly for the Blues and for Australia. I thank you for coming in and investing this time and sharing your wisdom and some great stories. And I better let you get back and call Lois back.
Yeah, actually, he's run twice. So, yeah.
But yeah, thanks, mate. Appreciate it.
He knows I work for Des Hasler, and the hours are long and hard. So he'll, I'll be okay there.
Yeah, cool. Come on. Cheers, mate.
Thanks a lot. Thanks for having me on. Great to have a chat, and all the best with the podcast.
Cheers, Brett. As a footy fan, I love that chat with Brett, hearing what it takes to be successful at that top level, whether you're a player or a coach. I also love that he talked about a lot of the things you've heard me bang on about a lot, the importance of having a vision for your life, for your future, having buy-in, having your values and living to them. So making sure that is part of your game plan. It should be already your game plan for life. Also, 2 important things that he mentioned, that awareness, because you can't make any changes till you have awareness that something's there. So making sure you have that. And one of the best ways to overcome self-doubt, preparation. If you prepare, you won't necessarily remove the nerves, but you'll absolutely give yourself the best chance. So some great lessons there. Make sure you add them to your game plan and enjoy the success that will bring. You've taken the time to listen to this whole episode. Now it's time to take action. Commit to one thing you've learned today and make it happen. And to avoid any obstructions, join the Sport is Life movement by clicking on the link in the show notes.